Hello, Fulham fans, and welcome back to another episode of FOF'cast, the Fulham podcast that likes to give it to you straight. Pleased to announce that Mike Gregg has decided to join us once again to give his views on this evening's topics, along with our regular guests Owen Smith and Gerry Pimm. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guests. How you doing, Mike?
Yeah, I'm good, Scott. Looking forward to talking about the show and having a look at where we are now this early in the season. But doing well.
Good stuff, as usual. Hello, Owen. How's it going?
It's been pretty good. Looking forward to discussing a couple of things following with you fine gents.
Mr. Pimm, how's it hanging?
Good, thanks, Scott. Hello to you and to Mike and to Owen.
So to get the show started, the first topic naturally is the West Ham game. So we eventually lose the game 1-0, going down to a controversial goal on the 91st minute by, is it Sukek? I can't pronounce that one, which most of us, including David Moyes, thought was offside. Shame, as we held our own for the majority of the game, matching West Ham in most areas. However, in the 89th minute, we are then awarded a penalty for a foul on Tom Kearney and had the opportunity to equalise. But Lookman misses in spectacular fashion, which we'll cover off a bit later in the show. Bit of room for optimism here. As for the second game, I thought we showed signs of improvement. And if we carry on like that, stand a chance of surviving. What were your thoughts on the game, and was West Ham's goal offside? And I'll come over to you first, Mike.
Well, first of all, on the goal, was it offside? What is the offside rule? I mean, that's the hardest thing to sort of think about. But I think the conclusion is it should have been offside, yes. But for the game overall, I thought apart from the first 10 minutes, I thought we were the better side for the rest of the game. We probably didn't create enough clear-cut chances to warrant winning it. But losing it the way we did was very gutting. And but there was certainly signs of improvements. Probably, even though we lost, I thought we probably played on a par that we did the week before, and there are good signs there, good partnerships. Some of the newer players showing what they can offer. But yeah, you come out of the game, it's still a loss, though. That's on reflection. That's what it is, really. It's points dropped when we can't really afford to. But you can only hope that the team, the way they're responding to the tactics that Parker's given them, and how they're building the sort of relationships and getting used to how they're playing, then it can only help us going forward. But we could have just done with that point, though.
Yeah, no, fully agree. As you say, it is another loss. And the further this goes on, the harder it becomes. Over to you, Owen. Thoughts on the West Ham game? Was the goal offside?
I'll come to that. I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is I did watch the game again, not on available outlets. Again, not paying pay-per-view. It was good to find a strong illegal stream to access the game. And I think probably what I'll say is actually I did enjoy the first 90 minutes. And sort of for the first time in a while, second time this season and sort of successive games, I actually thought we weren't going to concede on every attack from the opposition. Defensively, we looked coherent. We held our own, and this time it wasn't against a team that came up with us, and we all saw their limitations last season, and they're being exposed like ours this season. But I thought we held our own and we looked pretty well. I'm I know it's only an N of sort of 2, but I'm quite impressed by what I'm seeing from Joker Anderson. I think with him and Adebayo, there's potentially a partnership there. It looks solid at the back. And then they go and score, and for me, I was shouting. I think it was Haller who was offside. He was offside. You saw a goal the next day in the sort of I think it was the Villa game, which was disallowed for pretty much exactly the same thing, and that was frustrating. Penalty we'll come on to later, but there were signs of encouragement, and if the game had ended 0-0 without any excitement, I'd have been pretty satisfied actually, because West Ham are no mugs. Granted, we were mugged off, but I don't think we were mugged off by West Ham. We were sort of mugged off by some pretty poor officiating and the other incident.
Yeah, no, you touched on some good stuff there, and we will touch on obviously the penalty incident a little bit later in the show. Over to you, Gerry. Your thoughts on the West Ham game? Did you kind of feel that their goal was offside? Were we hard done by?
Yeah, so I won't repeat what the others have said, and I generally agree. Again, apart from the first 10 minutes, frankly, we could have been 3 down. It was an encouraging performance. It looked like a lot of training ground work had paid off, really. There was a lot of energy. I thought we were quite Roy-esque, really, with a lot of sort of banks of 4 and stuff. I thought on 70 minutes, we seemed to sort of back away. And I sort of, when you've got sort of a stadium full of people and you're 0-0 and they're all urging the home team on, I understand that. But when there's no one in the ground, do you sort of naturally back off? I don't know. I mean, just a thought. But I also thought it was a sign that Mitro was knackered. And again, we've gone on about this. He's got no support, has he? And no one to replace him or whatever. Yes, the goal was offside, but in theory. But for me, I'd be interested to know what others think about this. For me, I still thought it was soft defending, really. We've all played football at some point, I think. And you do play to the whistle. And frankly, it was a weak header. And there was no marking on the goal scorer. Was it Anguissa who should be marking him? So I don't think we should just ignore the fact that, okay, it was offside. And, I felt we switched off a little bit there, personally. But overall, yes, positive. I'd sort of disagree with Mike. I think West Ham probably deserved the win. I think potentially we've got black and white glasses on in the sense of it was a much improved performance. But I think if you were a neutral, potentially you'd sit there and think, you were okay, but it wasn't that great. West Ham might well have deserved it, and they're potentially just looking at the first 10 minutes alone. But I just thought I'd chuck one in there as well about Loftus-Cheek. I mean, I think that's quite an issue when he came on a sub, and again, he just. I'm not suggesting it's attitude, or maybe I don't know, but he just seems a little bit disinterested, or is he still unfit? And I just wonder if that's going to become a bit of a diplomatic incident with Chelsea, because let's be fair, they've sent him here to get fit, really, and I think he's not part of our best team at the moment. And do we get into a situation where he's going to be quite a lot on the bench, and are Chelsea and him going to be happy? Now, I don't care about them, but nor do we, but it depends on what promises we've been made and so forth. I just thought I'd chuck that in the mix as an element of that match.
Yeah, no, I think Gerry makes a really good point. The goal was soft. Anguissa did turn off, and I think it was Benrahma who actually ran into the box, which makes it even worse. He laid it off. But I thought it was actually a turn up for the book, sort of to actually come back from that. The number of times we sort of drop to our knees and it's over. I think for us to sort of to bounce back showed a bit of mental resilience that we haven't seen of late. I did find myself looking at Ruben Loftus-Cheek thinking a very similar thing in that, we look really good, but we look really good with him not in the team. And so, yeah, I think Gerry has sort of flagged something. It might be a watch this space. We might be doing the kid a disservice. He needs to get some time on the pitch and to get up to match speed. But I think it's a fair point. The goal was soft for as solid as we were for the rest of the game.
That sums up what this league is like, isn't it? You can concentrate, work hard for 90 minutes, and you slack off just a slight bit, and you're going to get punished. And we're seeing it. We saw it last time we were in the league, and we're seeing it again this time.
Yeah, no, look, you all, you've all chipped in with some really good stuff there, and you've raised some valid points. And I think the point, obviously, about the support for Mitro, I do think that we require another striker this year because we do lack in that department. As Mike quite rightly says, you do get punished a lot quicker in this division, and that happens to us. So some really, really good valid points there, guys, and you've covered that sort of. You've covered the West Ham game really well. Moving on to the second part of the show, which is the West Ham man of the match. 201 people voted in the Friends of Fulham man of the match, with Areola winning it with 91 votes, 47.8%. Harrison Reed coming second with 56 votes, 27.9%. And Robinson coming third with 16 votes, 8%. Once again, Areola's had a very good game, and the decision to bring him in over Rodak seems to be paying off. Do you think this was a true reflection? And what are your thoughts on Areola now he's played a few games? And I'm going to come straight to you on this one, Owen.
I mean, I think he's been exceptional. I think we all sort of questioned whether we should have given Rodak a run of the team. I think if we're saying if it was the decent thing to do, if you're developing players from within, you give Rodak a run in the team. But I have to say, since he's come in, to use a phrase Gerry used, Roy-esque, I think we've looked solid in goal. He's sort of doing what we'd expect from what we saw from Schwartz or what we saw from some Van der Sar and Niemi even at times. And I think it's good. I mean, there's no doubt he's a fantastic player. I understand he's on a significant amount of PSG. He's not going to get in the first team. He's won a World Cup medal, and I think he's been excellent for Fulham thus far. Long may it continue, but at the end of the day, I'm just super delighted to see us doing such a fantastic job developing another club's player.
Yeah, no, you made some good points. I'll coming on to you, Gerry. West Ham match. I mean, obviously Areola wins it again. Seems to be a sort of regular thing, and from a goalkeeper point of view, I do think he's pretty good. I mean, is that a true reflection? And sort of, what do you think about the goalkeeper as games are going on?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt he saved us, didn't he, in the first 10 minutes? It could have been quite embarrassing. I mean, I would say, firstly, I think Rodak might argue that he would have also made those saves, which is fair enough. But for sure, which is great, that keeper is not a weakness for us this time round, which it certainly was last time. But good for Areola for settling in quickly. I mean, remember the last two keepers who came in before and didn't settle at all. And also having to put up with different defenders, sort of from a sort of weak perspective, and now into a much more settled perspective. And of course, keepers need a good, solid goalkeeper. Defenders need a good, solid keeper behind them. Like Schwartz used to be for us, and so forth. So I wouldn't argue with that choice at all. And it's good to see him doing really well. I'm really delighted for Harrison Reed. He came in, and we all like Harrison Reed, and it felt like he just slotted in and did a really good job. So I definitely agree with that. Definitely Robinson. He's definitely worth a mention. He's looked so assured. I think he's going to be an absolute top player. I mean, he's just slotted in for a young man. He looks really good, doesn't he? And let's my weekly mention of TC. Let's bear in mind, that's back of, we've not talked about West Brom, obviously. That was a while ago now, but that was back of a storming West Brom performance and man of the match, and it's really good to see him proving his critics wrong. I've always said he was the wrong scapegoat at the time anyway, and I think he's shoved a lot of words down people's throats. So, yeah, I think those decisions of man of the match are absolutely fair.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, Kenny wasn't that far behind in sort of fourth. So, he's getting a lot more ratings these games, which, you touched on, and, he is improving, which is good to see. And, as opposed to last time, I think he has stepped up in this division. He's going to be one of the best players in the league, but he's showing his worth, I think, and he's putting in the tackle and he's putting himself about. Coming over to you, Mike. So the man of the match, Areola sort of wins it quite heavily. I mean, what are your thoughts on him since he's come in and the overall voting?
Yeah, I'd agree with the votes from the poll. It's also never. I'm certainly in that camp where if your goalkeeper gets man of the match, then you certainly had some issues somewhere in the game. But he has shown his worth. He is clearly a really, really good keeper. And I think there's a bit of a confusion on some people who, I mean, I was one of them when he joined and said, I would have preferred Rodak to be just given the number one position and just go with it as the season rolled on and have another backup. He's too good by the looks of it, to just be that backup. But just because a new player comes in doesn't mean you don't want him to do well. So, you know, we are stronger with him there. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, I tend to agree with Gerry. I think Rodak is a good keeper, and he, you know, I don't think we would be in any different position with Rodak in goal. So yeah, definitely man of the match there. I agree on the Kearney thing. You know, get him forward, get him away from our defence, and you know, closer to Mitrovic and in that final third, and he can play like he did the other day. And Reed, it was so noticeable how many passes or how many, you know, sections of play started with the ball going to him, and he overshadowed Anguissa, who certainly didn't reach the heights of the previous few games he's played. But isn't it good, really, I suppose, to, you know, see Anguissa and Reed there, you know, and then we have, you know, a couple of other players as well who can play in that position. So it's good going forward with those guys. And yeah, Robinson, I mean, if you're Brian, you're going to be, you know, a bit gay, but you have to say Robinson, he's got some legs on him, hasn't he? He can get up and down that pitch for sure. So yeah, you know, definitely agree with the result.
Yeah, no, some good stuff. And, you know, a snippet at 2 million, I think Robertson cost us, and I think he's shown his worth. And, you know, I think he could be an asset to us moving forward. You know, and just to touch on the goalkeeper situation as well, I think it's easy that when a goalkeeper of a young age has, you know, a good season and they are a good prospect, it's very easy to throw them in one season where they're going to get, we knew we were this season. And it's very easy to knock confidence or kind of discourage, obviously, young players. We see that under under Magat that time when he played that young goalkeeper at the start of the season for us. And I think, you know, we've handled that quite well. And, you know, it's not the end of the road for Rodak. I still feel that he will improve, and he probably will end up being our number one at some point. So we've done something right for once, I think. Moving on to the next topic, guys, and it is the Lookman penalty. Pretty sure the kid's been ridiculed enough over this already, and it'll be one of those ones that appear on social media platforms for years to come, but feel it needs discussing. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, however, in the 98th minute and with a draw at stake, you put your foot through that rather than trying to showboat, which, you know, is basically what he tried to do. It's not come off. We lose the game 1-0, and both he and Fulham end up looking a bit stupid. But what was he thinking, and how does he move on from this? And I'm going to come straight over to you, Gerry.
Well, I had my own personal dodgy stream episode at this point. It was unbelievable. Just as they said we're going to VAR to look at the TV, and as we know nowadays, that's when they go to look at TV, they're actually going to just give the VAR decision. They don't. It's just for show, that is. So I knew it was a penalty, and it clicked out. My thing clicked out. So then I'm getting Bet365, which does this sometimes, saying 1-1 because they, whatever, I think because of their algorithms, they want to assume it's a goal. And then I'm getting all these messages flying through, including from you guys, going, fucking this, that, and the other. What a joke. I think Owen said, I feel sick. I'm thinking, what's going on? Bet365 still going 1-1. Oh, it was a right mess. But anyway, I managed to look back at it and think, oh my God. But anyway, I mean, firstly, his arrogance isn't in doubt to me, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It helps with his game. So I have to say, this isn't. What's sort of the reaction was, you know, this was no shy young kid. He's 23, for God's sake, who was forced to step up. You know, so this sort of. You know, TC, Mitro, Scott, they should have shown leadership and not let him take it. I think I don't go with that. I do think you live by the sword, you're going to die by it. And I think Scott got that spot on, you know. You can miss a penalty, but Christ, if you're going to take one like that at that point, you better score. So, but going back, if Mitro had missed that, he'd have been lambasted for taking another one after the Sheffield United miss. If TC had missed it, he'd have been accused of doing a JT in that final and wanting the glory for his Instagram or something. And loads of people would have been saying, oh, you know, why not Lookman? He's got the confidence. We should let him take it. You know, listen, I'm with you. I think you've got to move on. He's a very important cog in our season. I mean, you imagine if someone like Cav had missed it. I mean, they'd be absolutely slaughtered. I mean, the real problem, whether it's a problem or not, we'll soon find out. He's obviously a confident lad. So does his confidence go, or is he arrogant enough to keep going? And I think this is where a unified dressing room will be key. If we've got one, who knows? If we've got one, there'll be a lot of piss taken. They'll get over it. If we haven't, and he might get the sort of blame and scapegoating. Perhaps he's been arrogant in training. I'm not suggesting he has, but if we all know what a new dressing room can be like. Kearney admitted that the last time round. So we really do need to move on. And just to mention that, he's put on his Twitter thing about, I'll move on and score more. I'm not a big fan of players on Twitter, actually. I'm not sure it's very helpful, personally. I just think you've got to get on with it. But basically, in conclusion, it was very unfortunate. It's the way it is, but we can't keep going on about it. And without a doubt, he's been one of our, if not our best player. So, just hope he gets over it, and perhaps he'll have that sort of fight and energy to win us games to try and make up for it.
Yeah, completely agree, and I'm just hoping that after the international break he sort of comes back and he sort of tears Everton a new one, and that's kind of hopefully the reaction we get, and we all sort of get over it and we move on, and hopefully it becomes a positive. Over to you, Owen. The Lookman penalty. Your thoughts on that, and how do we move on from it?
Yeah, I think Gerry's hit the nail on the head. I mean, it was a silly penalty. You take one of those penalties, you risk the wrath of everybody should you miss it. He's not the first or the last. In fact, Mitrovic has actually missed a Panenka that he tried to take at international level. He tried one against Montenegro in 2018 while they were 2-0 up. Put it over the bar. They got quite lucky and managed to still win the game 2-1. But it was reassuring to see the interview from Mitrovic today with the Serbian national team, sort of saying, look, exactly that. This has happened to a lot of players. We are a dressing room. He's a good kid. He'll come back and he'll be stronger for it. Which I think is a good sign. And I'm fortunate enough to know somebody who sort of was involved with Lookman in the early stage of his career while he was at Waterloo and through to going to Charlton. And he sort of regaled a story to me about how Lookman was sort of invited to play behind closed door friendly with Charlton, and ended up scoring 4 because he was in a bad mood. But when the scouts came to see him in a Waterloo game, he was benched for being late. So I sort of have a view that he has a temperament that can come back and really sort of thrive in the adversity of the situation. And he's you say he's 23, an experienced pro. He only joined sort of Charlton late 2014. He's still learning his craft. He has actually scored one of those for England at the under 19 level, I believe it was. So it was a silly penalty. I think the number of tweets, texts, comments, and phone calls that just said, "Put your laces through it." Ifs, buts, and maybes. I think if he had his time back, he'd do it again, but he'll come back stronger.
No, good stuff. And you sort of deliver some points there. Over to you, Mike. The Lookman penalty. How does he sort of move on from this?
Well, I think it's been covered quite well there. I mean, he's clearly a really good player, and he has an arrogance because he wouldn't be able to do some of the stuff he's done even in the short time he's been with us. I mean, you've got to have that confidence. I do beg to differ with what Gerry said about people like Mitro and TC should have stepped up. But I mean, whatever you read, Mitro had an issue. Kearney's missed ones as well before, and that type of stuff. And so you can sort of understand it, but it's in the last minute or 98th minute, whatever it was, and he hasn't taken one in a match. And that was a surprise. I mean, he's done it in a penalty shootout, but he's not actually taken a penalty in a match. And so you sort of think, was he the right person to be taking it at that time? But he is confident. He has been playing well. And some of the comments, and I'm sure some of you guys the absolute vilest one out there as well. Was OTT, but a lot of it is in heat at the moment and just frustrated with everything. But yeah, well, I'm sure he will take another one possibly this season and he will score it, but I doubt he will try that particular style again. But you just got to get behind him and, take and forget about it and take it into the next game and let's hope he can produce something play the way he's been doing in the games previously, and also the way he played the other day, because although he finished the game like that, he had a good game apart from that, just that bit at the end. But there is somebody pointed me out, which I did watch, and that's if you watch the penalty again and watch how many people follow up the penalty. Literally every West Ham player follows that ball as he's taking the penalty, and we put 2 in there while there's about 9 of them in the box. So maybe, I don't know what that says, but you watch it again, watch it on a replay, it's very telling. But yeah, we just move on. It's done. The best players in the world miss a penalty, but I just wish he hadn't tried that trick.
Yeah, no, you touched on some good points there, and sort of when I looked it back as well, it was the type of penalty that he took, and I mean, even Fabianski's gone the other way, isn't he? And the chip was kind of followed Fabianski. He's only got to kind of fluff it 2 foot the other way, and it goes in, doesn't it? And I think that's the most kind of like annoying thing about it. But look, it's happened. We move on. Let's just hope that he sort of, he pushes on. And like you say, the feedback that I've had from sort of other supporters and friends is that he's a very, very good player, and he's turning it on for us, and we need that for the rest of the season. Coming on to our next topic, so another Tony Khan video. So last week we were treated to another Tony Khan video, this time called Catching Up with Tony. It came shortly after our 2-0 home win against West Bromwich Albion, which a lot of fans thought was a bit premature, especially as the West Brom game was only our first win in 7. The video in general touched on how our new signings are bedding in. And building on Monday's excellent win against West Bromwich Albion. Did you watch the video and what were your thoughts? Do you think it was a little pointless and premature at this stage of the season? And I'm going to come over to you, Owen, about that.
So yes, I watched the video. Was I amused by the timing of it? Highly. Did I think it was a bit premature? Definitely. As you say, we have only won 1 game this season. It was against a team that came up with us and were equally limited. Whilst it was a good performance, and I think that the players that Scott is working with are starting to gel as a team. I think we'd all agree Robinson's a good signing. I think we're leaning, or at least I am leaning towards Adebayo being sort of put in the positive signing. Cam Aina looks reasonable after a very shaky debut. On the defensive side, Reed, a bit of a no-brainer. Anguissa's sort of returning. Loftus-Cheek's done a lot of bench warming. Valero looked dreadful. Lookman, we can see his talents there. And so we're sort of 7, 8 games into the season. We're making our minds up as to whether players are good or not. We are not idiots as fans. I don't need to be spoon-fed how good our new centre half is after 1 game. I thought it was a bit too early to sort of come forward with that sort of statement. Sure, if we turned it round, we're out comfortably out the relegation zone, 15, 20 points at the end of December, and we sort of got, to put my scientific hat on, we've got a greater N number, sort of 7, 8 games where we can see a consistent trend of good performances and good results. Then sure, yeah, engage with the fans and say, this is the vision. We admit we wasted 4 games at the start of the season. Hopefully you can sort of live with it and we'll push forward. But after 1 win, not for me.
Coming up to you, Mike. Another Tony Khan video. What were your thoughts on it?
My thoughts were I wasn't going to watch it, and I didn't. I really, I don't really want to catch up with Tony after every win. I suppose you could argue we won't see him that often this year if he is going to do that. But you almost know what he's going to say, and Owen's pretty much put down exactly what he said, and you just know what he's going to take the praise for everything. Where is he after this last game? I just had enough of it. For me, as much time as I've given him and can see the good points of him as well, we screwed up this season again with the 4-game sort of delay. I just don't buy all this crap about we were going to give Adoy and Ream and Marchand another go to see whether they could. We knew they couldn't cope with the Premier League. Rodek, that was a question mark against him. A couple of the others maybe as well, but sorry if I swear, but to piss around with the way we did for those 4 games has just given Parker and ourselves absolutely, a very, very small chance of staying up, I think. So no time to watch it. I might go and look at it at some stage if I need a laugh, but I just haven't got time for him anymore. I'm sorry.
Okay, cheers for your feedback there, Mike. So coming over to you, Gerry, catching up with Tony, what did you think about the video?
I thought it was great, as you can imagine. I mean, he just doesn't get it, does he? I mean, the bloke just does not get it. You're beating the bottom side, if we weren't bottom, but I mean, the side that if you said to the Fulham fans at the start of the season, we're only going to win 4 games all season, which ones will they be? They'd have all said West Brom at home. And he decides this is a great time to promotion video on him and his signings and how he got them, all about me, and isn't it great, Jeff? Poor old Jeff Bruce. I mean, the fact he has to do it is just incredible. It's actually interesting social media-wise in the respect that everyone, who's brave enough to put their head above the parapet once again laid into it. What ridiculous it was. But after when he did the last one, we all got stick from his sort of sheep, and they didn't say anything this time. So I think they're sick of him as well. And again, it's the timing, isn't it? So he's put that on, and then we go and lose the next game, and as Mike says, and then he disappears, not thanking the worldwide fans because apparently the worldwide fans aren't important after a loss, And it's everything about it. He's in that sort of little sports bedroom, as someone said. He's probably got a TC duvet set. It's just embarrassing. And he's trying to emphasise how he speaks to Scott and TC, and we're all unified. And he's just so out of touch. It's just very, very cringeworthy. And then he's claiming the signings. Oh, I saw Toshin against Blackburn. I always thought he was the great player. No, he didn't. Scott openly said, he saw him. Anderson was always our first choice. No, he wasn't. In the video before, he said, we lost our first choices. He made up some COVID stories and so forth. So there's a lot of nonsense, and we know he talks nonsense. And frankly, when it gets down to it, it'd be a miracle if Scott keeps us up with this director of football. I mean, you can imagine with a proper one, he could be doing really well. And it's worth touching on Congolo, I mean, what is going on with that Congolo signing? You sort of, you have to say, those players that came in and failed medicals, as McIntosh put in the FST meeting. It's like going in an interview and you're like 30 and being told you're too old, and then suddenly them appointing 2 40-year-olds. I mean, how did Congolo get through our famous medical? He's just injured himself coming back from it. There's something very murky about that deal. There's something very obsessive about that deal. Very, very odd. I mean, what I found quite interesting in this respect is sort of the owners' puppets, Woodcock and Lamping and people like that. Normally, they're sort of told to shut him up, and that's why you don't hear him after our defeat going on about his wrestling. And they obviously write the owners' notes and so forth. So they clearly haven't got a grip of him at this point. I suspect the club weren't very happy about this at all. I suspect Scott wasn't either. It's just part of the pressure of Scott. And I said this at the last pod. That's quite an interesting nudge from the club, Antonio. We're all happy. I did everything. It's all down to Scott now. He didn't say that, but that's always the nudge. I've done my bit. It's all down to the manager now. Absolutely ill-timed, ill-informed, can't read the room, and the club really should be saying to him, you can't do this anymore. But they won't.
A TC duvet set. Brilliant. Look, I'm going to move on to the next topic. Rest of the season. We've a 2-week international break now until the next home game for Everton. So, with that in mind, and taking in the West Brom and West Ham games, I wanted to collect your thoughts on the rest of the season and where you think Fulham are going to end up. At the beginning of the season, we looked pretty much doomed, but now the new recruits are settling in. We do look a bit more composed. My only concern is it will still look a bit toothless up top, which we'll need to address in January. Coming to you first, Mike, as you're up on your stats, what's your forecast of points and what will be needed this season to avoid the drop?
Yeah, so I had a look at this, and because most people are saying, as long as there's 3 worst teams, and I'm certainly one who, 17th is the target. Stay up, and you can spend money. You look at Villa; they scrape staying up, and you can establish yourselves. And so I've had a look. I've had a look at the Premier League since it, for the last 25 seasons and that kind of stuff. And there's no doubt that the bottom 4, as it stands today, is either the worst or the second worst if Burnley win their game. That there has been sort of points wise at 8 games. And to give you an idea, at the moment, let's say Burnley win their game, then the 4 teams at the bottom will have accumulated 13 points between them. The worst was 12, and the average is 21 at this stage. So that shows you how poor these 4 teams are doing. And so logic dictates then, it's going to be a really low points tally at the end of the season. And, I've seen some people say, is it going to be 26, 28? It won't be, but it's possibly going to be, maybe as low as 33, 34 for 17th place if these teams continue the way they are. I'm probably projecting it at the moment to be about 35, 36, because teams do get better in the second half of the season. It's an anomaly, but the teams in the bottom half of the league score more points than they do in the first half of the season in the second half. So there will be improvements. The points tally will go up, but there's no doubt that this is one of the worst starts 4 teams have had. And so it gives us a bit of hope that for a team that's won 1 in 8, and we basically need to win 8 in the next 30, it does give you a bit more hope. And all you can do is try and stay ahead of those 3 teams, and importantly, win those games when we play against them. We've got to win that mini league if we're all going to stay as bad as each other. So at the moment, like I say, anywhere from 32 to 36, but it's probably going to be 34, 35 for 17th at the moment.
Brilliant. Nice, some good feedback there, Mike, because I know that you sometimes do your stats for the forum. One of those ones that some of the members like looking in at, and the projection that you do is quite good. So, thanks again for that. Over to you, Gerry. Rest of the season, let's say we have a 2-week international break now, home game coming up with Everton. I mean, casting back on the West Brom, West Ham games, what's your thoughts for the rest of the season? Where do you think Fulham are going to end up?
Well, I did my own little bit of stats. This is a first for me the other day, and someone like Mike probably already knows this, but I'll sort of read it out anyway. What I looked at, I'm going with Mike on the 4. I'm not including Brighton in this bit of stuff. But I went through all the games, all the teams around us, as in West Brom, Sheffield United, and Burnley, have played, and us obviously. And what I consider the sort of stellar size of Liverpool's, Man City's, etc., Arsenal's. Chelsea's. I thought, well, who's played who? And West Brom have played 2 of them. Sheffield United have played 4 of them. Burnley have played 2 of them. And we've played 1. And then I thought, well, I'll add in the sort of Leicester, who are up there, Everton and Southampton. Because I think that's fair enough to say they are just as difficult games. And suddenly, West Brom have played 5 of them. Sheffield United still 4, Burnley 4, and us still 1. So for me, again, and I know we bang on about this, the slow start could well cost us it, because as everyone knows, our next games are Everton, Leicester, Man City and Liverpool. And every game's difficult for teams down there now. But we are in a particularly difficult next 4 games, and we could go adrift. Now, the key question, of course, as Mike is pointing out, is do Burnley pick up? Do Sheffield United pick up? I think you'd probably say West Brom are probably going to go. Burnley have got these real boardroom issues, which could really affect them, I think. There's obviously some real problems going on there. West Brom also have these ballroom issues with Bilic. I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone by Christmas. And of course, if he is, and they bring in a Pulis type, then we all know, much as we all hate Pulis, he can do things. So yeah, I go back to the early games of Costas really, and I won't put Mike on the spot, but he might know it. I mean, I would say, how many seasons under the Khans have we started so slowly because of this lunacy transfer thing about let's save a few quid. I think it's been out there before that we always start so badly just because of that. So Scott, we could argue Scott had the sort of same squad at the start with always work, and we've seen the training grounds helped out. We'd be in a lot better position, and plus, of course, the support from Mitro that we all knew we needed. And again, they did nothing. So for me, I think we still go down. Actually, I think we might make a bit of a fight of it. I remember in the predictions in the pod before the season, I think we all virtually said we'll probably go down, but we'll make a better fist of it. And I think that's what will come. And when people say, will the Lookman penalty cost us? I don't think that will be the defining point. If we go down, it will be because we did that famous, we'll ignore it for 4 or 5 games to save £1 million. But if we do stay up, it's an incredible job by Scott. But I mean, as Mike says, we might have got away with it because the others have been so bad. But you have to say, Burnley have been in the Premier League, have got the experience, and as of Sheffield United only 1 year, you could argue this is the sort of famous second year. But you have to say, because of their experience last year, they're probably more likely to pick up than potentially us, given our next 4 games. And by our next 4 games, we're over at Christmas. If we've lost all of them, which is very possible, could we be cast adrift?
Yeah, that's really good stuff there, Gerry. Touched on some valid points. Yeah, and I think you're right in what we predicted. I mean, I kind of said the same. I think we'll probably end up, we will still end up going, but we'll put a bit more of a fight up this time. And it sort of begs the question as whether we stick with Parker throughout this, based on that. And that's just my opinion, but we'll see what happens. Coming over to you, Owen, rest of the season, we've got 2-week international break now, and reflecting back on obviously the West Brom and West Ham games. I mean, where do you see us ending up?
Yes, so I will come on to that, but I know for a start that Mike has done stuff on the start stuff, so that'd be useful. Let him say that, and then I'll come back in.
Yeah, I was just, what Owen said. What Gerry said there about the start. He's right. Under Khan, since they come in, the best 8 games we've had is our first full season with Jokanovic, and we got 13 points from 8 games, but it still only made us 9th, and that's the best we've been in all the seasons they've been in charge. I mean, this season is the second worst start going back to like 2000 that we've had. I mean, we are appalling starters pretty much throughout all that term, but especially under the Khans, we just can't get going at all. And so we're always playing catch up, which is fine for a playoff final and that type of stuff. But it just puts so much pressure on the managers and the players, and it has to. It's the same thing. It is the buying late. It is the signing the players late and letting the team gel and it takes too long. And yeah, we're in that issue now.
I think you're right there, Mike. And I think we need to be quite realistic. We've played 8 games. I think we all agree. Let's bygones be bygones. We have wasted 4 games. We are where we are. But to get to that 33 points that you sort of said, we need 29, which is going to be 9-10 wins. And as much as I will say we're an improved team, and we're looking a bit better, and the results are coming. We have had a very easy start. I think when we all saw the fixtures drop, we thought we need to get points on the board early because, up through to that Leicester game, I think at the time we thought Everton at home. I think we still in our heads have it as a bit of a, Fulham usually win the home game, they win the away game, but it hasn't been like that for a number of years. Up to the sort of Leicester game, we thought, let's try and get 3-4 wins on the board, give ourselves a fighting chance. And I think, we will valiantly fail, through no fault of the players at the club or the management. We are limited by the fact that we have a championship squad which had to be turned into a Premier League team in 4 weeks. And you look at where we're going to potentially pick up wins, and sort of, between now and sort of the start of December, there's not much between now and sort of the end of January. You're looking at it thinking, we haven't really got any games that are exciting or potential opportunities to win. I mean, we play Brighton at home in December. Is that going to be our next point? Potentially, yes. Playing Everton, Leicester, the form they're in is going to be tough. Man City and Liverpool, I fear for any team in the league playing them, quite frankly. Then we've got a run against Brighton, Newcastle, Southampton. I think by Boxing Day, that Southampton game, I think we'll either be well and truly cut adrift, or we'll have seen some really surprising steeliness. As much as it gave us some pleasure watching us be competitive with West Ham, they're not on the same level as the teams we're playing in the next 4 games. That feeling of defensive competency can be made to feel very silly very quickly. Ultimately, I'm thinking 30 games, us winning 9. I just don't see it. I think we're going to have to just put our heads down and try and salvage some pride. I really, really hope and believe that we will not be as bad as that Derby team.
The interesting, you mentioned Everton, Owen. They've lost 3 in a row, haven't they? And I do wonder if the break will do them good. Would it have been a good time to us to have played them next week, for example, or will the break give them that opportunity to sort of reset themselves? Because I think it's 3 in a row they've lost. It might well have been the right time to have played them. I don't know.
Yeah, and then given how good they are, you have to sort of say where are their players going. I mean, James Rodriguez, if he's going back off to Colombia to play international football, you don't wish illness on anybody, but at least for us, I think we have less international players right now. So we might actually benefit from a couple of weeks. It could be a good time for us to play them, but as you say, get those losses out of their system, right?
Yeah, I think good points again. The valid point here is, if we've got to start picking up points, then we need to start taking some scalps. I don't think we've done it at all in our last outing in the Premier League. Even when you look back from last year, even though Norwich went down, they still beat a Man City at home. There's still them odd kind of games that you look at where you do pick up results. And I'm sort of looking at this and thinking, Everton's got to be one of those. Leicester at home's got to be one of those. We need to be mixing these up. We can't just rely, obviously, on beating West Brom's at home and Brighton's at home. It's not going to keep us up, unfortunately. And coming back to a valid point, I think, which Mike touched on, or you all did really, was how important it is for an early start. What kind of hit home the other day was Leeds. Now, Leeds have been hammered their last 2 games. They've conceded, best part of 8-9 goals in the last 2 games. And they don't look that good at the moment with a few of their players missing. And you think to yourself, Christ, these guys can be dragged back into it. But then when you look at the table, the wins and results, they're sitting there happy on 10 points. And that's a mass distance between them and us at this moment in time. They look rugby,
exactly.
But it's been important of how good that start's been for them, and it probably will keep them up this season, So no, you touched on some good points there, guys. A really interesting topic. Moving on to our 6th and final topic, which is something that appeared during the week. 5 years ago since Kit was sacked. It's been 5 years since Kit was sacked, so wanted to collect your thoughts on this and how you feel the club has progressed in that time. Kit was appointed after Magat nearly got us relegated again, but his up run out following the season after a series of poor results. Within that time, we narrowly missed out on the playoffs. We've been promoted twice via the playoffs and been back to Wembley twice after an absence of 45 years. Granted, we had an awful season in the Premier League last time out, but we're back again for another go. Based on that, how do you feel we've progressed over that time? And I'm going to come to you with this one, Gerry.
Yeah, so it's quite amazing, really, wasn't it? Was it a couple of weeks ago we were all reminiscing on eating Bristol City. We were 4-2 up at half time. I don't know how many of you guys were there. I imagine all of you were. And I mean, the scenes are incredible. You know, what a day out that was. And then the following week, lose 5-2 at home to Birmingham, and Kit gets the marching orders. And then we wander off to the Milton Keynes, which is probably the worst game I've ever seen, but incredible day out for some of us. Peter Grant, I think I remember the quote from that game. He said, "I don't even want to be caretaker manager." I mean, we were such a shambles of a club. And then we went through the whole Clark, Rowett stuff. Steve Clark at one point took the job, then realised, my God, who am I going to work with? And said no. And then we finally got Slav in December, didn't we? End of December, who needed time to sort it around. And then he got us to Wembley, which is just exceptional for all of us, you know. For many of us, probably certainly on this panel, first time we've been to Wembley with Fulham, and we won promotion. It was tremendous. But of course, during that time, we've also had to put up with the owner appointing his son and his special friend, and that became a complete shambles. We became a laughing stock. It was all over the newspapers, you know. And people say, you know, we could have been Bolton, we could have been Wigan, we could have been this, we could have been. Yeah, absolutely. But equally, and I think this is really important, you know, if a proper director of football had come in at that time, we could easily be a Leicester or a Southampton. You know, we've got the money. We spent money, silly money, with someone who knows nothing about football dictating it. So it's complete madness in my view. It's a totally missed opportunity, you know. And I have to say off the pitch, because I think it's worth talking about in the last 5 years. And it's 5 years I joined the trust, I suppose 4 years ago, as in the board. And I've seen that sort of club go from pretty decent, and there are some good people still there, but it's become a very toxic culture. Culture comes from the top. We know we're a very Trump organisation, and I've seen firsthand the traits. You know, they made up stories, they target fans, they haven't really got any time for fans. And both Owen and Mike have been on the board during these times, so I'm sure they might want to comment on that. You know, and again, I always say if we could open the bonnet more, I think we'd be very terrified of what we've seen. I think there's been a real dip of a moral compass, frankly. So, in summary, great times, but overall, we've sacrificed some decency and we've missed incredible opportunities. And I think if he'd been a bit shrewd, the owner, my goodness, it could have been a lot different. And we can't argue with him that he's building a new stand and he put the money in. But you imagine if he'd put the money in with a proper director of football, how much better we could be now. And people are desperate, hanging on for threads. Well, you know, we got a promotion a couple of times. That shouldn't be our aim. You know, we got that money. If you put a proper director of football in, the opportunities we could have had, as I say, someone like Leicester or Southampton, it could have been very different. So good times, but also, as I say, I think, and I don't just think, I know many fans have fallen out of love with the club a little bit because of the way things have been going on behind the scenes with certain activities and so forth. You know, it's a shame we missed opportunities to become a very stable Premier League club, and all the ingredients were there for it.
Yeah, no, you touched on some valid points there, and I think that's kind of without sort of getting too involved in this topic, because I want to come over to Owen and Mike on this in a minute. That's been my concern, really, is watching how other clubs have progressed in that amount of time. And you take Wolves, for argument's sake, you know, they've all thrown sort of big money about, you know, and I look at us and, you know, that was branded about yo-yo. I mean, it's not what, you know, I expected Fulham to be. You know, with the money, the backing, and everything else that we've had, you know, I expected us to maybe sort of get up and push on as a club. But like you say, opening the bonnet and looking at the mechanics of things, we we don't seem to know what's going on, behind the scenes, or we're not good at the kind of footballing stuff. And my biggest argument was when obviously, the Cardinals took over from Fired. I think the biggest mistake they made was pulling down, a board of directors that were football people and replace them with their own. They would have done justice, I think, for keeping them there for maybe a season, or at least kind of, investing in their knowledge, but they chose not to, and we are where we are. Coming over to you, Owen. So 5 years ago since Kit was sacked, wanted to collect your thoughts on this. How has the club progressed in that time, do you think?
Yeah, I think let's go back to where we were after we lost. I remember that where I was when we lost that Birmingham game 5-2. We were also like, ugh, here we go again, up, down, Fulham, middle of the table. We're going to waste the season. And I seem to remember them sacking Kit and actually, Gerry, you've got a lot of friends who are Watford fans too. But the first thing that came to mind for me was let's go for Jokanovic. Checks the Watford fans, see what he's up to. Okay, he's out in I think it was Israel at the time, sort of managing Maccabi Haifa or something. I don't know where Haifa is. And he was sort of get Slav. And I think that's really the first time under the Khans that we hired the right man for the job at the time. He'd just taken Watford up. He played the brand of football that we wanted to see at the club. It was a brand of football that fit well with our players. We got promoted eventually. We built a good squad of players. The McDonalds, the Johanssons, Doys, all sort of coming in. Ream, Kenny, not a sort of our system signing, but we had a good core. Then we sort of got promoted, and I think we all got a little bit clever. Everything went a bit contrarian. It wasn't sort of signing the players that we know we needed. We didn't sign, an established centre half with Premiership experience. We went and signed Maxime Lemarchand. And I think the prevailing theme from a good start, sort of reflecting on 5 years, the prevailing theme from a good start is, we eventually got to the Premier League, and then, contrarian thinking, signings, and I guess an element of, I know better than you in our recruitment and managerial appointments, has sort of led to us becoming a bit of a yo-yo club and a bit of a laughing stock, because, the elation that we all felt that day, in 2018 at Wembley wasn't just because we'd seen Fulham at Wembley. It wasn't just because we'd won. It was our last year in the Championship. We had, the parachute payments were ending. We were acutely aware that if we lost that game, we were going to lose Sessegnon, we were going to lose Kenny, we were going to lose Johansson. We were never going to get Mitrovic back. And then we are really in a really nasty situation. And at that point, I think we had, we could have gone anywhere. We could have become sort of, as Gerry alluded to, we could have, with the resources at our disposal, we could have become a Premiership team that had learned from the experiences of a new ownership regime, which ultimately took us down with some terrible signings. A shambolic year where we had three managers in sort of the Yol, Magat, and Muellenstein Park. We finally got back to the Premiership, and guess what? History repeats itself. We have a shambolic year with three managers and end up back in the Championship. I just hope that we aren't going to do exactly the same this year. But it's not a successful 5 years. Could have been a lot worse. But equally, it's also a case of, with what we have, if we sort of just followed the footballing way and signed the right players in the right positions, that I think most fans would have pointed to, sign the centre half, sign another striker, as opposed to contrarian thinking and signing another winger. We could have had a much more successful period since 2018-19. I really hope we can magically stay up this year, but not seeing it. I don't know where that puts us for the next 5 years.
Oh, it's some good stuff, Owen. Thanks for your feedback on that. And finally, coming over to you, Mike. Obviously, 5 years ago since Kit was. So I want to collect your thoughts on this and how you feel the club has progressed in that time.
Well, I mean, the two guys have covered quite a bit there, but I mean, so 5 years ago we had Rig as well. So he's gone, obviously replaced by Tony. But I mean, the word that comes to mind for me over the last 5 years is scattergun. We've done that with transfers, we've done it with managers in some ways, and Jokanovic, golden era of 2 seasons, I suppose. I see Wembley and the follow up from that as a completely missed opportunity to build foundations for the club going forward. We spent £100 million. When in some ways we didn't need to spend that. All we needed to do was spend probably 60 in the right places, and we didn't do that. And then when we did spend that money, we spent it too bloody late anyway. And it's okay to turn around and say, and Greece is playing well now, but Siri's turned out to be, I think he's a good player, but for us he's a very expensive failure. Imagine spending that money on 2 decent centre backs, for example, where we might be in a different position. So I've had an incredible high in the last 5 years, which I think we all had with Wembley, but we are now a yo-yo club. We've gone up, come down, going to go down again, almost certainly, I think. And yes, we have better players. The squad is much better than when Kit left. Yes, they're building the new stand. But 50 signings in the time since Tony took over, and arguably how many of those have really been successful. I suppose you could compare it to other clubs as well. But I just don't see a plan. I just see us fumbling every season to find a team. And really, we should be putting foundations down. Yes, you have to improve every year. Players move on, that kind of thing. And that's quite hard for, look at McDonald and Johansson, 2 players we like. Do you really want to let them go? And, there they are kicking the ball against the wall every day because they can't do anything else. So we are in a better position, absolutely. But the clubs, there's something missing from the last 5 years. I mean, it's not as friendly a club, and all of us, well, certainly, being on the trust board, we've had a chance to peek behind the curtain, if you like, and see how it runs and try and help the club in many ways. But I just feel there is something fundamentally wrong within the club somewhere. Certainly on the fan relationship side, and then on the playing side, it's just the scattergun approach every season. But yes, we had Wembley. so yeah, it's been a weird 5 years.
No, that's some great stuff. And look, thanks, guys. For your time on these topics today. I feel it's been a really good podcast. This, and we've covered a lot of ground. But look, once again, we sadly run out of time and have come to the end of our show. So look, I'd like to thank our guests for joining us. And for those of you who've taken the time to tune in, don't forget FOF'cast is available on SoundCloud as well as iTunes and Spotify. So make sure you subscribe to any future shows. Goodbye for now, and thanks for listening to FOF'cast.